I'd like to know how many of you ever talked personally with John during the last few years? Please stand. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, who heard him ask a good question? Good, thank you. Now I'd like to know, and I'll preface this. There are many things that we taught John in the family. What I'm about to ask, he got from some other dimension. How many of you have ever seen John dancing? Or riddling? If you don't know what riddling is, find somebody who works in the PRL and they will tell you. I found out last night. Thank you. And how many of us have ever experienced John making us smile? And whether or not you ever experienced him making you smile or ever even met him, how many of us think the smile on this picture is an amazing smile? Thank you. You can be.
When people ask me and my husband, Jeff, why we serve as resident fellows in an all-Frosh house, we have lots of reasons that we can give. But the most important one is that we can provide for our children, who are sitting over here, role models and exposure to people who they might not meet if living in your normal neighborhood. John was not just someone who could expose them to new ideas. He was someone we could point to as bold and inspiring in all things that he did, in all interactions with others. The day after Frosh moved in this year, Facebook provided me with a memory. It was the video of John as he walked up to the dorm his first day, when he was greeted with the enthusiastic cheers that all Frosh get when they arrive. Sorry. His smile in the video exuded what we eventually learned was his constant, humble warmth. What you can also see in the video is the joy he took in seeing others so happy, having so much fun, that he valued that they were having as much fun welcoming him as he was enjoying the greeting. As we do every year on move-in day, the year that John moved into Larkin, we walked around the dorm, introducing ourselves to residents and their parents. When we got to John's room, I showed them the video and sent it to his mother. I remember being surprised by how accepting he was of my sharing the video. To be clear, I can't imagine any resident on that first day telling me not to share something with their parents. But what struck me about the moment was John's clear sense that having that video probably meant a great deal to his mother, that my sharing it was about her on the day she brought her son to college. Twice in that first day, John demonstrated his ease with others' joy. As a musician, John listened carefully, seeking the space and harmonies that make jazz a beautiful challenge, to create moments that help others appreciate the miracles of creation, which often allude to the tenuous and temporality of the created. He lived a beautiful life by making things moments of sublime beauty. We were blessed to know John, to be in the spaces that he created, to be within his gaze that conveyed such depth of vision and care. He was obviously a remarkable person, and those remarks seem unfailingly, influentially gracious and good. We will miss the grace he gave, his wit, his smile, the penetrating ways his eyes sparkled with a well-lived life. He has made his marks, and they will continue to be remarkable. May we bless others by sharing the gifts he gave so freely. We, like so many others, were inspired by John's boldness, his happiness, his silliness. We hope our children take all they learned from him and our friends to others as he modeled.
I had the privilege, I didn't get to spend the number of hours that many of you did with John. I didn't hang out with him all the time or get to live in the dorm with him or play music with him all the time, but I had a long span. I was the guy that the university made him talk to when he first arrived. I was his assigned pre-major advisor. And after John signed up for a real advisor, he said, "Can I keep you too?" I said, "Sure." So we hung out the whole time. And I got to see John quite regularly for the entire time he was here at Stanford. And I got to tell you, it's very, very simple. I just love that kid. I am just nuts about that kid. The very first time in 5 years that I walked into a Stanford building or across a Stanford space and I saw that from any distance and it didn't run across the room and grab me was today. And I miss it. I mean, I miss him. He wasn't my kid. And I never told you this, Bruce, but if you ever got tired, I was ready to jump in and adopt that kid. My wife and I have 5 adult children, and they've married people, and they create people, so we've currently got 9 young adults and 13 people on the radar screen. But trust me, there was room for John. We would totally have taken John. Having been here 10 years and having worked with people in the college age for a long, long time, not to be unfairly critiquing, and I know in a politically correct world everything is great, but let me be really clear. John was like the best guy. He was like the best guy. He's so much cooler than I am, or hardly anybody I know. And he did 2 things that I think are rare when they're done together. He both gave and he received. He gave and he received. The first thing he gave me is he always gave me a grab. I mean, literally, for 5 years, no matter, and I'm pretty sure John's primary objective in life was making me feel terrific. Because as far as I could tell, he would lay in wait at various points around the campus on a regular basis, and he would attack me from behind. This happened over and over again. I mean, clearly he was spending a lot of time looking for me, which I really appreciated. I really appreciated that. And so that was a great thing that he gave me. The other thing he gave me was hope. Because if I could figure out anything about John, it was just he was so profoundly alive. He was just on all the time. And there's a lovely phrase from the 3rd century. The early church father Irenaeus said, Gloria Dei vivens homo, which I'll translate for the few who didn't get that, which is the glory of God is a human person fully alive. So if you want to know what it looks like to be touched by divinity, just hang with John. He is the most fully alive person I think I've ever known. I don't know anybody that I've ever known who's more fully alive than was John McMorty. And it gave me hope.
I first met John when he was a student in the PRL, and I quickly knew that there was something special about him. When we both worked together as PRL TAs, it was very easy to see how integral his role was in the community. He had such an infectious joy for life, taking the good and bad in stride. His positivity and warmth not only impacted students, but peers alike. John seemed so natural and fluid in all the different shops. You'd see him in the wood shop, maybe talking about the guitar-making epidemic going through the US high school system today, or the machine shop talking about how contrast equals interest. I have to confess, though, I think John's favorite place and time to be in the PRL was in the machine shop during cleanup time because he could play his own music playlist. He would be dancing and singing while passing out shop jobs, but also giving joy to students who may have been tired from machining all day. I think in a way that was his love language to them. He loved to make people feel included and part of the experience, regardless of their background, and was able to share his enthusiasm and passion through music. Every first-year TA must pick a specialty for their second year, whether that be in the machine shop, the wood shop, or the classroom. When John was having difficulty deciding on a specialty, we came up with one for him, and the common slogan was born, John McMorty for President. Because he really had the qualities that made him a good leader, and also a really great person. He was very active and filled each day, yet remembered to be patient and thoughtful in conversation. He was smart and bold, but always remained curious and humble. He always loved to make people laugh with his playful spirit, and knew when to switch gears and become introspectively serious when he was deep in thought about something.
Good afternoon. We are Adele and Stephen, two of the lucky 79 residents that were randomly assigned to the blessing of living with John our freshman year in Trancos.
For many of us, John was our very first friend at Stanford. On move-in day, he greeted each of us with a huge smile and our full names pronounced perfectly. When I first ran into him outside of the dorm, I thought to myself, I don't think anyone has ever been this excited to meet me in my entire life. And I immediately felt that he was a person that I could trust. My dad later told me that meeting John on that first day gave him the confidence to get on the plane and leave me at college. The first weeks of my freshman year were some of the most difficult in my life, but having John as a friend to confide in gave me the ability to push through.
As an RA, he brought our community closer together, whether organizing off-campus trips to the San Francisco Symphony, leading us to football games, or gathering us all together around the Trancos table. He put so much of his time and himself into every single one of these community building activities.
There was nothing more Trancos and nothing more John than yelling, "Let's go," at the top of his lungs and leading us into our first year. Within 1 week, he had convinced us to stand up in Memorial Auditorium to dance to spirited Trancos chants, persuaded dozens of Trancos residents to go to a soccer game to cheer on our fellow resident Drew, who none of us had even met yet, and had all of us using the word tramily. That was the community that John created for us, one that even if you didn't know every intimate detail of a person, you would still support them because they were part of your family.
John loved sharing his passions with us, and one of his greatest passions was football. To help international students in our dorm, John arranged for our 2 football players to act out a football 101 in front of everyone. His love of football spread throughout the residence, leading one previously confused international student to consistently paint his face red for home games.
On Halloween night, John and Anshul decided to throw a non-alcoholic cocktail party entitled John and Anshizzle's Jazzy Fizzle, so that all of the residents could enjoy the night together. Everyone was having a wonderful time squeezing into John's room, watching him masterfully concoct mocktails, until John and Anshul decided to turn on a fog machine. Within 5 minutes, the entire first floor was covered in smoke. Trancos and Soto had to evacuate. And we all stood shivering and laughing outside as we waited for the Palo Alto Fire Brigade to arrive. John also took tremendous pride in his residence. During the course of the year, he hosted 2 cafe nights to highlight the amazing artistic talents of Trancos residents. He also installed a kudos box where residents could submit nice notes about others in the dorm, which he read aloud every week during dorm meeting.
But maybe most importantly, John was truly a friend to each and every one of us. He would drop whatever he was doing to talk whenever you need it. When in conversation with him, he made you feel like you were the most important person in the world, listening carefully and responding thoughtfully to whatever was said. Because of this, I personally relied on John as a mentor for many of my toughest decisions, first year and beyond. If anyone was going through a rough time, John noticed and made sure to check that they were doing okay. His positivity and compassion drove us to be better friends to others.
He always seemed to know what to say or what action to take to make us feel loved. After another Trancos resident and I spread the rumor that we were John's favorites, John took the time to create an Excel graph called A Quantitative Study of a Resident Assistant's Love for His Residents. The graph had every single one of our names listed underneath a bar. He typed in every single one of our names, which showed that we each had 100% of his love. If that weren't enough, he also ended each of his emails with a line that said, "I checked again, and it's still official. You are still the greatest people on the planet."
There are so many things that John taught us simply because he was being himself. We believe that every single person that he encountered learned a lot about how to go through life just by watching him.